I want to welcome everyone who's joined the call today. How many people does it take to change Florida? A lot. And so I thank all of you for joining us. And for those of you who I don't know, my name is Margie Stein, and I want to welcome 3 of our House District candidates to the call. Next, we wanted to welcome Franccesca Cesti-Browne, who's running in District 115. District 115 is located east of Miami. It's a narrow, long district that goes south of Miami as well as north of Miami. It's a very interesting space. Franccesca is an immigrant businesswoman, community advocate, running to improve schools in her community, protect the environment, and bring real change to Tallahassee. So, Franccesca?
Hi, everyone. Margie, thank you so much for having me and for the whole team. I really appreciate your time and your interest to wanting to help not only flip my district and all the other candidates' districts, but also the Florida legislature and driving that all the way up to the state to get Biden elected. So thank you so much for having me. I'm originally from Peru. I moved here when I was 8, and I've been living in the same district, or well, you know how redistricting happens every so often, in the same area for over 30 years. I went to public school, graduated, went to the local community college at Florida International University, and this is where I'm raising my family. I have 2 daughters, a 9 and a 7-year-old. I'm also their Girl Scout troop leader, so it's fun. I don't just do it for the cookies, but I love how the girls really love that program and learn new skills, and we're building them up to be the next amazing generation of leaders. I put myself through school, worked full-time and went to school full-time. That's what I needed to do to get ahead. And been very fortunate to have a great career, which I made a decision very early on to focus in the nonprofit. So I've been working in the nonprofit sector for over 15 years, working with local organizations and international organizations to help their communities and fill those gaps that our government sometimes can't fill. And so they're the backbone to a lot of our communities and providing the services that we need. And so what propelled me to run was 2018 happened when we voted for Amendment 4 to restore the rights of folks, coming back after serving their time. And I couldn't understand how we voted for something and they got to Tallahassee and they created legislation that made it impossible for our vote to happen. So that's when I started doing some research about the legislation that gets introduced that we, the people, have no idea about because it doesn't make the right headline. And so that started concerning me and actually disappointed me. And I started seeing the bigger disconnect between state elected officials and us, the people. And the fact that they're okay with that, right? Because then they get to push their plan and their ideas or their party's ideas, and we have no concern. We're not able to know what's happening. So that's what propelled me to run. I started doing all this research, and then obviously the pandemic happens that really put a spotlight on everything that was already wrong with our system, from our unemployment, from our healthcare, our education system, the disregard for our teachers. So that's really where I'm at. And this is why I say, this is exactly why I'm running, because we need a voice and we need to make sure that we have right representation, people from the actual community. So my district is actually one of the 2 top flippable districts in Miami-Dade County. It is a Democratic district. They voted for Hillary, for Andrew Gillum, for Nelson. So this is really, it's doable, but it's just the Republicans have been having just the state seat because again, we need to re-educate folks how much state seats really impact our everyday life. And so that's what we're doing with a campaign. We're registering people to vote by mail, just really increasing the civic engagement that I wish I would have also had, but now I'm doing that as a candidate and passing that knowledge on. So I'm here because our children, need better. And I'm concerned for my kids and what does that mean for us as our legislation keeps passing and our voice as people and community keeps getting taken away by our state legislation. So that's why I'm here, and I'm so glad to be part of this group, and thank you all so much for your work. We're gonna do this, and I'm so excited.
Does anybody have any questions of the candidates or anything that we're doing?
This is Allison here. I just wanted to ask, given everything going on with the racial justice movement across the country right now, I know Florida has plenty of issues as it is, obviously COVID being a major one. I'm curious what the candidates' positions are on that topic and funding for police being diverted to community programs, and what your stance is on that that movement.
I would say, I agree with Tracy and EJ 100%, but I would also add that we also need to invest in our education system. Did you know, I was reading some stats that based on how kids do on standardized testing in 3rd grade, that's how they start planning for how many beds they're gonna have in prison. That is the most craziest thing I've ever read. And so if we don't invest in our education, especially our public education, and make it an actual choice for families and our communities, we're never going to help them lift up, right? I mean, and education is what brings economic prosperity, growth and prosperity to our families. So if we can't do that and invest in our education system, then yeah, we're always just going to invest in the after, right? So how do we get to these programs and things ahead? So with my social, my not-for-profit background, that's all we do. We try to work with prevention programs to build, give kids options and interest and opportunities that they would have never had because of their situation. So we need to invest more in that. And it does start with making sure that they're able to see a doctor, from the time, the mother is pregnant and after birth, and have all these things so they really do start in an equal playing field with other children that may have those services. And they're really getting a head start before they even get to school. So yeah, investing in our public education system is key.
I actually have a question on the charter school issue. So I'm here in Southwest Florida, and the sort of conventional wisdom around one of the reasons that Andrew Gillum is not our governor is that the Republicans did an amazing amount of outreach to African-American moms who in fact want their children in charter schools because depending on where they live, that is the child's best ticket out. And so for this part of Florida, we have to be very careful when we talk about education. And I'm just curious if any of you, the three of you, have any thoughts about how we turn the tide on this issue. Thank you.
So if I may take that, my district is very pro choice in education. So a lot of families do have, go to charter schools or private schools. And, I get it. I'm a parent. I would do anything for my children and want them to have the best. But the problem is that this is why my talking point is more so we need to make sure we make public school education the best choice. Because right now it's not even a choice, right? You can't compare apples to apples right now. It's not the same public school when I went when I was a kid, that you moved to that neighborhood and at least had, the resource. It's not even like that anymore because they're so underfunded that if it wasn't because of the amazing PTAs and the parents doing fundraisers, sometimes the kids wouldn't even have half of the things they had. So the talking point, at least I know from my district, is really making sure that we make public school education an actual choice for families, because it's not right now. And then people have to apply for charter schools that can really deny, or vouchers that can deny. They're not equitable, they're not open and inclusive of children with disabilities, with the LGBTQI community. So, this is where the problem lies. And we continue to also not have a governing board for charter schools, which is also another problem. Charter schools do not, even though they're public school, they don't have to follow public school education guidelines. So this is what you're seeing now too with schools opening. Some charter schools are really pushing reopening because the governor said, well, the public schools, the public school education system is trying not to open or have different measures. So this is really what the talking point is for me, just making sure we have any agency that does receive public school funding has to follow the same standards as public schools, but also making sure first and foremost, we make public schools a real choice, and we have 21st century education for our kids. I mean, we need to put Florida forward. We could be the thought leaders of our education system, our healthcare system, our unemployment system. So that's really the talking point, at least in my district, because that is an issue in my district.